Warning, this episode contains mild to heavy explicit spoilers. Listen at your own risk.
Reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is The Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
Sato is a popular teenage girl, orphaned at a young age, raised by a disturbed relative. She rejects traditional love after being known for playing the field in her high school circle. Questioned by friends on why she no longer is in an open relationship with her peers, Sato simply says she has found her happiness and focuses solely on work at a moe-style cafe restaurant. Her co-workers continuously try to pry into her personal life, but Sato is merely presenting to them what is mostly an inoffensive, hardworking, asexual avatar. Unbeknownst to everyone else, Sato is harboring a grievously disturbing secret in which she shelters an 8-year-old girl. This child she sees as the love of her life. This secret, so socially reprehensible, Sato decides to take any means necessary to protect it, from gaslighting to intimidation and even murder, all to protect this hidden wonderland she has deluded herself and her ward into believing. This is the premise of Happy Sugar Life, an anime adaptation of the manga created by Tomoyaki Kagesura. This 12-episode series is a psychological horror look at the failures of good parenting and the perversion of love. Now, when I first heard about this show, I wasn't aware of the level of mental illness displayed on hand of all the characters involved. Every person in this show, for the most part, has been dealt some sort of psychological blow that they have not recovered from and have decided to inflict punishment on others because of it. Sato herself, having to live with her aunt who sees herself as a plaything for others, gave a hell of a view on the depths of desire to a child secondhand. This was an ugly, brutal love that Sato would witness and would shape her twisted view on the world, where innocence was nowhere to be found until she crossed paths with the lost child Shio. Now, how explicit is this series on the relationship between Sato and Shio? Thankfully, it's more of a containment of virtue than it is a sexual obsession of the older girls. That's what I am interpreting from what I'm seeing in the show. It's still a completely disgusting case of Stockholm Syndrome and kidnapping, but Sato's love from observation alone is the protection of a pure being who is walking the trash heaps of the world. Still, Sato is proclaiming her love, brainwashing this charming sponge of a child into thinking that this is all normal. The mere fact that from what we observe, Sato is not an outright pederast, I think it's done to help swallow the pill that she's the lead character for what she is. It would be beyond the pale to not outright object to her actions if she was. From their nightly vows to love one another to a peck on the lips tradition, this is considerably foul to show that Sato herself is unknowingly spreading her poisoned mind to a gullible, already damaged child. Shio herself is a prototypical Japanese cute little girl whose pure innocence everyone wants to likely protect. She's selfless and endlessly cheerful, though she is also not immune to the darkness that her young life has been through. From faceless visages of her mother haunting her to the world outside being a frightful, unknowable terror, this young girl makes some harried adult decisions and conversations no one in her age should. Shio's brother Asahi, who is possibly the most tragic character in the series, has been spending months looking for the girl after quietly shepherding their mother out of the clutches of their abusive drunkard of a father. He barely eats or sleeps, basically a ghost looking to collect the only thing pure in his life he tried to protect. Their mother long since abandoning the girl because she felt the violence of her husband beginning to saturate in her psyche and taking it out on Shio. Other players in this series are Taiyu, a young man who works at Sato's cafe. He has been routinely violated by the establishment's boss, an older woman whose advances are not to be taken lightly. This has incredibly affected Taiyu to the point in which seeing a missing poster with Shio's face becomes instantly obsessed with acquiring the girl, so that her innocence can purify him. What that means is very dubious. He's the yin to Sato's yang. Whatever he's up to is downright suspect. Rounding out the cast, Shoku is another of Sato's co-workers who is a conflicted good person, wanting what's best for her without realizing the complex and perverse web she is stepping into. Her interactions with Sato are genuine and interesting, but for the genre it's not very welcoming for legitimately caring people. As complex as I'm making this series sound, it's fairly paper thin on plot. You know where the series is heading from its opening scene, and it decides to tell the story in flashbacks just to see why it got so bad. We all know where it's headed, but is it worth the slow reveal? I think it's quite a good show for what it is. A cutesy anime girl series that on screen looks like any generic kid show, masking a vile subtext of cyclical abuse. The negatives are some characters that come and go due to Sato's machinations, a perverted teacher that looms in and out of the series held under Sato's thumb, the cafe boss who simply vanishes from the series with a threat, a co-worker that is obsessed with becoming Sato gone with no notice. Seemingly, these characters are much more fleshed out in the manga, but not in the show. though I don't think it suffers from that really. As for Sato, is she likable? To a point, but I myself could not get the nagging reality of what she is doing and what she's willing to do to preserve her twisted love. I just wasn't down for that, and I wanted to see her downfall. I don't think the show is celebrating her mission as heroic as Sato might see herself. That said, there are some people on message boards that cheer on Sato's hurtling path into madness. Are they empathetic to a lead character who was so warped as a child she should get some form of happiness? Or are they perverts wanting to see two chicks of varying ages get it on? I hope for the former more than the latter, but human beings cease to surprise me with their depths of depravity. I did not root on Sato. I realized how much of a screwball she was, but it's an interesting series that has a dark ending and for sure acknowledgement of the damage people inflict on others that can cause scarring mentally and keep the darkness alive to fall upon others. There is violence in the show also, mostly implied, but the coup de grace contains a telegraphed act of murder that is so unsettling and still shocking for how bright and pretty the show is presented as. 8 out of 10 being a teenage boy in a room full of missing posters of a child.